Hi, Almost families. I can't believe it's already November and we are headed into the holidays before we know it. I am starting to see great strides with your children, and it's really exciting to see them grow and become more fluent readers. What I want to talk to you about this month is comprehension and how important it is to have your kiddos talk about the text that they're reading. If your kiddos are bringing home a little book in a bag, be sure that you're asking them questions as you listen to them read. If there's an appropriate time or a pause in the story where you can ask questions up to the point they've been reading, it's okay to do that. But some questions you can ask for your young learners and your early readers are who, what, where, when, why, how questions. Those are questions that are often asked in first and second grade, where they're still kind of in the process of where they're learning to read. There is a transition between second grade, depending on your child, maybe third grade, where it switches to learning to reading to learn. So they're really focused on sounding words out early on, and then they make that transition to where they are reading to learn. They're ready, they're fluent, they're ready to dive into the text a little deeper. So the who, what, where, when, why, how questions have to do with characters, problem and solution, the setting of the story, where does it take place? Does the character change over time? Does the character start out really nervous, and by the end of the story, is the character overcome that and become brave? That's a big standard. Being able to recall certain things in the story, pivotal moments in the story, like what scared the dog, or what was the biggest problem and how was it overcome? Who worked together to help them overcome that problem? How did the problem get solved? Those are great basic questions to get your kiddos started. Now, and I know it's hard when you have a predictable text, and what I mean by that is a lot of those little books in a bag are like, I see the elephant, I see the giraffe, I see the lion. But if you can even still get them talking about the animals in the story, or maybe what they noticed in the story, that's helpful as well. But as they get a little older and maybe they're working on nonfiction text, maybe they're reading articles they're bringing home for homework, different types of mini chapter books, we switch from learning to read into reading to learn, as I said. And some of those questions you're going to want to ask or have them talk about. Getting them thinking is the most important thing. Is reading is thinking. And I tell my students that all the time. Reading is thinking. Your mind should constantly be monitoring what's happening in the story and able to process that and think about that, as well as while they're reading fluently. And so if they can make any predictions about the text, maybe they read a chapter, say, I wonder what's going to happen next. What do you think is going to happen next with this character? Visualizing, summarizing the story, basic recall of what happened in that chapter. And even if you didn't read the chapter, I know when my kids got a little older and they were reading Harry Potter books and different books, I wouldn't always sit with them and listen to them read those chapters. But I would talk to them about the text, and I would say, what happened in this chapter? What do you remember from this chapter? What was your favorite part of this chapter? What do you think is going to happen next? What do you see as a big problem that could be coming for this character? So anytime your kiddos are talking about text is awesome. You want them to talk about the text. Good readers are always monitoring and thinking as they're reading, like I said. So if they're reading and they notice something doesn't make sense, we teach them to go back and reread the part that didn't make sense. So I know for all of us, we can read a paragraph. I remember in college reading a paragraph and spacing out and then thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just read? And I had to reread. That's the same strategy for kiddos too. Have them reread a little section if they can't recall some information and you see it in there, and say, I think I see it in there. Can you reread that part? And then we'll talk about it. Having them visualizing and imagining the story in their mind, creating like a movie of the story, is always really helpful as well. So the most important thing is when your kiddos are reading, even if you are not sitting and reading the text with them as they're getting older, definitely ask them questions. Even if it's, what was your favorite part? How did the character change in that chapter? What surprised you about that chapter when you read that? Or what surprised you about this page in the book? If they're reading nonfiction text, there's captions under photographs. There's bold words that are vocabulary words that are important that can be found in the glossary. There's a lot of text features that you can ask them about as well, but ask them about facts. What did you learn about snakes? What was the most surprising thing you learned about them? So I guess what I want to say to you is just remember that reading is thinking, and get your kids talking about what they're reading. So when they come home, if they have some reading homework, have them read and ask them questions. And if they don't have a book, ask them what they read in the library, or ask them about a read aloud that their teacher is reading in class. And I get my students, when I'm walking them across campus, talking about read alouds all the time. And the information that they're able to share with me is great, and it gets them excited about reading, and it gets them excited about talking about reading. So I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday with your family. Don't forget, this Friday is Crazy Hair or Hat Day, and listen to your kiddos, talk about the books they're reading, get excited with them about what they're reading, and ask those important questions so that they're always thinking. Alrighty, I'll see you next month. Have a great week.